Several light milliseconds away, on the south side of Dorset, lies a small, relatively overlooked podcast known as Round the Archives. The archivers, though rarely visited by television producers, have a regrettable sense of humour and have been even known to nick other people's introductions to their series just to get a cheap laugh. Random visitors who stumble across their SoundCloud account are often perplexed by the activities of the archivers and wonder if they are actually that silly in real life. Improbably, this does seem to be the case, and the more playful archivers will often set listeners all manner of strange puzzles by making incredibly obscure references to arcane and esoteric things. Sometimes, if the listeners manage to solve these puzzles, they can win a biscuit. What? You were expecting a crystal? Be sensible, we're not made of money. Ladies and gentlemen, with Richard of York giving battle...
in vain, apparently.
It's episode 11 of Round the Archives. Doogie Rev.
Well, now, another opportunity to see the adventure game, and we return to the realm of strange beings from outer space as Sarah Green, Anne Miller and Richard Stilgo alight on the planet Arg.
Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Round the Archives. I'm Wordner.
I'm Nero.
And I'm Asil.
Are you?
Bless
Yes.
you.
Oh, does it hurt?
No.
That's some clean for that.
Why are we talking backwards?
I don't know, it's your idea.
Oh, no, it wasn't. It was Bill Homewood's idea.
Okay,
but
well
we
then.
shall talk about that shortly. Now,
Leafy this.
hello, I'm Andrew.
I'm Lisa.
And I'm Warren. But it wasn't necessarily said in that
No,
order.
oh, that'll
It's in the
confuse
wrong
people.
order.
It
That's
doesn't
Right,
matter.
that's marvellous.
Do we have any odds and ends from last time? I don't think we do.
I think we do, no.
Goodness.
Yeah. Got it all right.
Did we?
Oh,
Well, nobody just told us we got it wrong.
No.
But today we are going to talk about the Adventure Game.
Yes.
Which
has just come out on DVD.
came out on DVD
last Monday.
Was it that long ago?
Yes.
Thank you,
Blimey.
Simply Media.
Yes.
Good-o. Right, so who remembers the Adventure Game?
I do.
I do.
I like the way you're putting your
There's
hand
no
up.
putting your hand out, Warren.
It's very
It's
visual
audio.
for audio, isn't it?
Yes.
I think I remember virtually all of it, but you remember
I remember the
later
latest stuff,
don't you?
but I
Lisa?
do remember the Aspidistra.
But Warren, you said you remember the
I remember the tube train.
Tube Train,
Yes.
and that's series
Series 1, isn't it?
Series 2.
Series 2, sorry.
You
yes.
said it got a
Yeah.
repeat, so perhaps I saw an
yes, there
episode
are
with the
repeats.
Aspidistra.
But there must be people who don't know what the Adventure Game is. Poor things.
Poor things.
Oh,
So, this is going to be tricky.
this could be
isn't it?
really good.
How,
Shall we start with the planet first?
how
Work
do
from
how
that
do
way?
we explain the Adventure Game?
It's a game show
Yes.
for children.
Well, there's no children on. I'm not even sure.
But it was on at 9:30 in the morning.
Let's go
Adults
to-
don't watch stuff at 9:30
Let's
in the
go
morning.
to the first listing of it in Radio Times, which is the Saturday, the 24th of May, 1980.
I was 10. How old were you?
9:30.
8.
9:30 in the morning.
It was
12.
12.
In 1980, in May 1980,
Or
I would have
11.
been 11. So Saturday morning. This is sort of in between seasons of Swap Shop, basically.
Is it on BBC Two or BBC?
No, it's BBC One.
BBC
9 o'clock, the
One.
banana split.
BBC One. So 9 o'clock is the banana splits, and 9:30 the adventure game.
Yeah.
And let's read out what it says. A problem for time travellers. Many light years away, on the far side of the galaxy, lies Arg, a small planet of little consequence. On a day trip from Earth by time machine are Elizabeth Estenson, Fred Harris, and Mark Dugdale. The Argons, a polite race of advanced dragons, find it amusing to test these visiting time trippers. Yeah, that still doesn't give much away, does it?
Anything away.
No, so if you tuned in, I don't think you'd
wouldn't know
really
what to
have a clue
expect.
what it is. What it is.
But they have a sort of series of puzzles
It's
to
a Krypton factor on a
solve.
low budget.
It's the Crystal Maze,
Yes.
For intelligent people.
For intelligent
For
people.
intelligent people. It's
which
sort-
doesn't always work.
Well, I remember you said the other time that Fort Boyard is the Crystal Maze for stupid people.
Yes. Yeah. So this is going the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the idea is that the three guests
Arrive.
on this planet
And then they steal the
and-
crystal
and have to solve problems
to get
to
there.
escape.
There is
To
logic clues. Maybe,
Is it
aren't
to get
there?
their crystal in this series?
It depends.
It depends on what
yes.
episode it is.
But series 1, you've got. Thank you for putting your hand there. The regulars are Moira Stewart.
Yes.
Before
she's
she
a
was a
Before
newsreader,
news,
even
yes.
she had been on Radio 2 and 4 as an announcer, I think. But yeah, she was. This is before her time as a newsreader. We've got Ian Messiter, who created Just a Minute, the radio game show. The series itself is created by Patrick Dowling, ex of Vision On. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've also got Charmaine Gradwell. How do you pronounce it?
Charmaine.
Charmaine.
Yeah.
Well,
Charmaine.
I'd pronounce it Charmian,
Yeah,
but
I
I'm
know.
told that that's wrong.
That
The
is
type of
wrong.
name you get John Chalice to
Charmaine
pronounce.
Gradwell
Yeah.
and Christopher Lever.
Yes.
And all the regular cast are basically playing Argons,
Which are sort of weird,
which are sort of
Dragon
dragon
things.
things which
Yeah.
take on human form.
which the costumes change every year.
Yes.
Yes,
And
some-
it's not
some
them
years
doing it
they-
anyway.
They've got the face masks of the creature from
Is
Master
it series
Mandragora, isn't it?
series 1 or series 2? They look like the thing from Androids of Tara that's in the bushes.
Oh,
the Tara and Wood Beast.
Mandragora,
Yes.
yes, yeah, my apologies,
I
yeah.
think that's series 2, isn't it?
Series 2, isn't it?
No, series 2 is the weird costume with a ring at the bottom where you can almost see the people's feet.
that's
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one.
That's
Is
the
it?
one.
Yeah, series 1 they're more reptilian,
Yeah.
and
They
no,
look like a furry shark.
Oh, right.
yeah,
Okay.
they're like sort of really cut price Yeti.
Yeah.
So I don't know what like evolutionary biology on this planet is meant to be like. If
Because it just changes every year.
yes,
Yeah.
You're going to get whatever costume designer's doing it.
you've
then,
also
yeah?
got Uncle,
Yes.
Yes.
who changes form drastically. In series 1, he is Ian Messiter, who
Yes.
plays him as a sort of man in a sort of velvety jacket. Who's a
Yeah.
bit sort of absent-minded. By series 2, he's an aspidistra.
And he's the head of the planet. Then.
Yes, and by series 4, he's a teapot.
Yeah.
Blowing steam.
Blowing steam out of his spout when he's
And
displeased.
scaring people.
Yes, you have now. This just sounds really weird when we start to describe it, doesn't it? But we have to
Just
give
buy the
background.
DVD. Buy the DVD
Yeah.
and watch it. You'll love it.
It does help if you're a bit loopy, I think, doesn't it? Yes,
Very loose,
because we are saying it's not the sort of show anyone would even consider making now, is it?
No.
No.
Although it started on BBC One, it then moves to BBC Two.
And it seems to go from BBC Two. They can get away with absolutely anything weird that they want to, then, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, Lisa, you're holding my recorder. Is it in the way?
Oh, how do you record it? Because I thought you wanted both hands.
Grasp
All right,
it firmly
okay.
with both hands.
Grasp it, Lisa. Oh, mind the thing. There we go. Oh, this is getting weird. But yeah, the series sort of splits into two halves, really.
Yeah.
Because you've got series 1 and 2 in 1980 and 1981.
Filmed at different places, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's filmed at BBC Bristol and BBC Pebble
Mill.
Mill.
Pebble Mill. Yeah.
Series 2 makes it very obvious it's Pebble
Pebble
Mill
Mill,
because
yeah,
Patrick
right,
Dowling
appears
welcome.
on screen.
There's a
Yes.
taxi turns up outside BBC Pebble Mill, and the three guests
He welcomes
come out.
into the foyer.
And
of
they're,
Pebble Mill.
they're mainstream guests, aren't they?
Yes.
They're people who are in recognisable,
I mean,
successful series.
let's look at the guests very briefly. For season 1, Elizabeth Estenson and Fred Harris,
And one member of the public.
and you'd always get a member of the
public,
public, who's occasionally got you get the caretaker of the year for one episode.
Yes.
In series, was it 3, episode 6, Ray Veer turns up.
Yes.
Now Ray, I did actually act with briefly in
All
one
right.
of Nick's films.
Okay.
I think
Nick Goodman.
Nick
that is.
Goodman's
Goodman,
films.
yeah.
I think it was Decry the Woman, and Ray had to play a coroner
Yeah.
at an inquest, and I was just in the background as an extra for this one. But I'd made the supreme sacrifice of losing my beard.
Oh, the
So,
things you do for
the
your
things
art.
I do for art. Yeah, I did a lot of filming of sort of behind the scenes stuff, but I only had the one scene in it. But anyway, back to sort of the series 1 guests. Lisa Goddard and Michael Rodd.
That one doesn't exist though.
That
so-
episode is missing. The show does suffer from not all of it
was
existing.
kept. Yes.
There's 2 episodes which appear to be totally missing. Though there is a note on here. One domestic recording is apparently in existence.
Yes, but they didn't want to return it for the
But
DVD.
That's never been returned. The DVDs do have 2 episodes which are sourced from VHS
They
copies.
do. They have the Paul Darrow one.
The Paul
don't they?
Darrow one from season 1 and the Madeline Smith, David Yip one from season
Oh,
2.
let's talk about Madeline
Lynn
Smith,
Oh.
Mensa Student of the Year.
who
Well-
has trouble with a keyboard.
Well, the trouble is, and to be fair, you're dropped into this situation and you just have to solve
Yeah.
very, very strange
Yes,
puzzles.
and they are hard.
They are.
They're hard
Season
puzzles.
2 especially really overestimates people's
Intelligence.
because you've got clues based on flags,
Yeah,
like the signal flags you'd use
Yes.
on ship. There's semaphore.
semaphore.
There's a painting with semaphore
Mm.
Oh, the Lowry
figures, the
painting,
Lowry
The Lowry
painting.
painting, yes.
And you've got to do some thinking.
What's the classic line she comes out with?
But unfortunately, Madeline Smith does pick up a torch at one point and ask, "What is
What's
this
that
used for?"
It's used
Well,
to
the
see if
answer
your
is to see in
brains
the
are
dark.
there.
But
It was the bit with the keyboard. And this is where we type, is it?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, because it's a keyboard.
yes, the show has got a lot of computer stuff in it as well.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And I said series 1 and 2 in 1980 and 1981. Series 3 and 4 in 1984 and 1986. And you can see how computers progress.
Yeah.
Because series 1, you've got this great big clunky Hewlett-Packard thing. Series 2 is an Apple II. You said to me, "How do you know it's an Apple II?" To which I said, "I know an Apple II when I see one." And series 3, you've then got the BBC Micro, which is playing a sort of 3D maze
Yeah.
game
Which
thing.
was actually quite relevant to a lot of the games that were
Yeah.
out then as well.
Because you are talking early 80s, and in context, you've got Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and you can see the influence of it in the sort of humour of the game. You've got Rubik's Cubes, you've got computer games, you've got sort of Dungeons and Dragons being a sort of popular thing at the time. And there's all this stuff feeds into how they've sort of set this up.
It is the foundation stone for what will go on to
Yeah.
be Crystal Maze.
But BBC
and such
BBC
like
Two,
that.
as I say, it moves on to BBC Two, and you were allowed to do weird stuff on BBC Two because you've got the Great Egg Race,
Yeah.
and interestingly, Heinz Wolf presents the Great Egg Race, and Heinz Wolf turns up in Series 4 and absolutely storms it,
He
doesn't
does.
he?
He's bought into it, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's taking it seriously, and the logic, you can hear him logically reasoning.
Yeah.
And working out what he's got to do next
Yeah.
and how he's
But,
going to
but
do
quite
that.
a few of the sciencey
And luckily he's the
presenter
one to
peoples,
Yeah.
people do quite well at it. James Burke
Yeah.
does all right.
Yeah.
Ian McNaught Davis
That's all
isn't
right.
bad either.
But doesn't James Burke get evaporated?
Oh, I can't remember.
I think he
Okay.
does.
That's because he wasn't in beige.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've yet to see the Heather Cooper one. That's a bit. That's the final episode. That's got Keith Chegwin in it, so I'm not sure how.
I think Keith Chegwin gets evaporated.
Yeah.
I have a memory of Keith
my
Chegwin
my,
getting
my
evaporated.
money's on Chegwin getting
Yeah.
evaporated.
Graham Garden's in Series 2. Paul Darrow's in Series 1.
With a beard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bonnie Langford and Janet Fielding both turn up in Series 3.
With a beard.
Yeah, and with Sandra Dickinson as well. Sue Nichols
A mention to Miss Popoff in that.
Oh, is there?
I watched that
yeah.
one recently. Yes.
Oh, the Ruth Maddock one. They stick in the 3-note xylophone from Heidi High, just for her, I think. But one of the things I think that people remember about the show is the currency, which is the drobna. Yeah, we should talk about, which are plastic discs.
Yeah, with
colours and
shapes on.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to know if you'd worked out how it works when you were watching it at the time, because I'm not sure I ever did.
I don't think I ever did.
No. I know what it is now, and the clue is, we've already said, Richard of York gave battle. And it's the colours of the rainbow multiplied by the number of sides. So a red circle would score 1 times 1. An orange circle would score 2. So that'd be orange is 2, and then the circle is 1. So that'd be 2 times 1. But a yellow triangle, so it's red, orange, yellow, that'd be 3. 3 times 3 would be 9. Yeah, and so on. All the way up to a green pentagon.
If you could
which would
see
be
us
25.
now, we're all sat with our fingers out.
Yeah, we're counting on our fingers here, trying to work out colours and shapes. So, if we're having trouble working it out from first principles,
and
don't knock the guests for...
They're under pressure, under the lights and doing the job.
Yeah, I don't know what the studio recording's like, whether it's just like, are we in studio all day till you work it out?
You can see sometimes they must be getting near the end of recording because they send people in to help them.
They do start to get hints if they are really floundering that the regulars will come on and do some...
I'm wondering if they give them an hour slot, because an hour slot or a 90-minute slot.
Oh, it's got to be longer than an hour.
90 minutes, would you say?
I don't know.
I'm imagining the Madeline Smith, David Yip one.
There's a lot of fade to
blacks
on some of them. Yeah.
But that one's worth watching, though.
Yes.
To get a good comparison with some of the others.
Yes.
Much as we're knocking Madeline Smith,
and then
worth watching.
So you get all the way through all these, and then you have the vortex at the end, which is something else that people remember.
Yeah.
Or in Series 1, you have the Drogna game.
Yes.
Game.
Yeah.
That's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
because isn't there one in Series 1 where because there's a movable square that you can put on other squares.
That's right. Yes.
And they put it on a square and step on it and get evaporated.
Yeah.
Because that's not right, even with the square on top. That's cheating.
And we have to pay sort of homage to the adventure game through the 5 Doctors.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. You've got the Herndl trying to jump across the board.
Easy as pie.
It's easy as pie, dear boy. That's what he said. Yeah, he said easy as pie.
Letter pie.
Thank you. But the vortex is, I think, the other thing that's remembered from it, because you'd move, then the vortex would move, and if you stood on the vortex, you were evaporated.
And the noise it makes. What's the noise it makes?
Oh, very good.
And then the
we
sort
could
of
drop that in later.
And then the sort of computery noise.
Maybe we will.
Beep boop. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the vortex is clearly generated by BBC Micro at the end. Yeah. Series 2, we have to talk about briefly the end of Series 2.
Yeah,
where it goes weird.
And we should say that Leslie Judd's in Series 2 is the mole.
Oh yes, Leslie Judd is in...
Because when Patrick Darling
go to your hole.
welcomes them at the start, he tells them there's going to be a mole. One of the humans is a mole.
Is on the side of the Argons, yeah.
I would have thought it would have been obvious, though. It's the one that you find locked up.
Well, it's not, though. It's one episode they find her out.
Do they?
Yeah, I can't remember which one it is, but...
But end of Series 2, all of a sudden somebody gets evaporated, don't they? And then he turns into a galactic policeman.
Yeah.
Played by, who is it?
It's Norman
Bird
from Worst Damage.
Who's wearing a costume of one of the guards from the Pirate Planet, weirdly enough. That sort of black studded thing with a helmet.
The helmet in the eye guard.
And the last 5 minutes or so
just goes a bit weird.
Turned into a sort of weird drama, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And I do get the feeling, because they probably knew they weren't getting a series in the immediate future, where they thought, well, we'll do what we like for the last 5 minutes. It's almost like it's like the final episode of The Prisoner. Yeah. That, never mind the game thing, we'll suddenly take it seriously and pretend this is real or something. It's very weird. Oh, one other sort of astronomy detail, I have to say that when you get the sort of wide shots of the vortex, they've CSO'd in a night sky background, and it's a very nice picture of the Pleiades, which is a star cluster in the constellation of Taurus, which is about 400 light years away from here, from the Earth. So they do say about many light years away. So actually, they've got their astronomy fairly.
And you said it
fairly
changes
right.
as well for
Well,
each series, because each series is shown in a different slot.
The positions of the stars appear to change from different camera angles, but in different series. But I don't mind that because, of course, the night sky changes anyway. Yeah. So that's all right. I don't worry about that. But yeah, there's a lovely picture of the Pleiades on Wikipedia that you can zoom in on, and you can see it's the same stars. So that's nice. So yeah, we know where Arg is. It's about 400 light years away.
Argo vision.
Yeah, Argo vision.
Oh, we should talk about the Series 3 decision to have children phoning in with a present for Uncle.
Oh, the monosyllabic painful. Children.
Yeah. Held at gunpoint.
Yeah, there's this thing about the Rangdo wants
his
birthday, and they've got to choose a birthday present.
Yeah, so it's ideas for people to what they should have, what they should get.
Yeah,
which is not helping the contestants very much.
No, it's nothing to do with the show.
Who just don't have a clue.
It's a filler, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know quite what that's about. Ron Gadd. We should say we should explain finally about Ron Gadd. Why we talked backwards.
Played by Bill Homewood.
Bill Homewood. Hello, Bill Homewood.
Yes.
Who is on Twitter, and if you're nice to him, he'll tweet you backwards.
Oh, damn decent.
But he was able to speak backwards.
When he was
allegedly
5.
From the age of 4, according to there's an brief interview in SFX magazine this month about the
there's a little
Adventure
piece
Game,
about it,
which is well worth reading. But yes, he comes in. He's an Australian, Ron Gadd, and he'll come in singing "Waltzing Matilda" backwards, and he'll go "Ole, ole, ole," "Doogie Rev," "Luffy Liss," and all this stuff, which is "Hello, hello, hello." Very good and silly full, and that's about the few I can work out. He did defeat the subtitlers on the discs because we said wonder if they'll make an effort, and the subtitles read: he sings Waltzing Matilda backwards. Ole, ole, ole. Yeah. He speaks backwards.
No, they just say hello, hello, hello.
No, it says ole, ole, ole.
Does it?
But it does. It does actually say it backwards. Okay. I'll show you the screen grab.
I believe you.
We took it later. But yeah, that's another thing that sort of sticks in your head.
That's what I meant. It says hello backwards, so you couldn't read it and work out what he's saying.
Yes. I mean,
but anything more than that, it just says talks backwards.
Yeah, I mean, a few people get what he's doing, but some people are utterly nonplussed by it. But, yes.
And we should say we just watched the episode with Noel Edmonds, or you said that, and he got evaporated.
Noel Edmonds.
We were quite pleased with
that. We were all cheered at that.
Yes.
But that's the joy of watching the adventure game.
I mean, it does start to involve you, because it is this thing about if you work out what them, or even if you know, because sometimes you're told what they're supposed to do, and they're doing it completely wrong. You do think what idiots, you know.
Yeah.
But as I said, you know, if you were dropped in that situation with no clues at all, how well would any of us do? That's the thing. I mean,
and the power you've got to put in your mindset. You're not in a television studio.
No.
You are going.
No, it's on the planet, and
you're on the planet.
Yes, you're stuck there until you escape.
Buy into that as well.
Yeah,
and then do that and carry on.
Yes, I mean most people I think are fairly focused on what they're doing. So you know you're not sort of winking at the camera or anything.
To suspend that disbelief. There's no knowing looks at the camera, or sort of looking up at the sky to hope that the box will say something. They actually do buy into it.
I mean, what was it you said, Lisa? If they did it now,
they would probably dumb it down a bit.
Well, yeah, but who you could get as guests? that we
so
said.
You'd have maybe Professor Brian Cox.
Yeah.
And maybe Dara O'Brien.
Oh yeah, you could go.
Yeah, and
the member of the public. Who would they be, Lisa?
They'd be some sort of reality person.
Somebody orange.
Orange.
Orange. But you could also get maybe Marek Kukula.
Yeah.
And Jim Al-Khalili.
Yeah, they'd be good. Yeah, it's just finding. You just want one good sciencey person in there. I think you don't want more than one.
No, you'd have one per show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you'd have maybe an actor or actress.
More light entertainment.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Well, is there such things as light entertainment these days?
Yeah.
And an orange person from a reality show.
But Warren, when did you get the adventure game disc? This few days ago?
It was a few days ago.
How many have you done?
Quite a few.
Have you done that half of it?
It's about half of it, yeah. Because it's one of those things you can put on that isn't heavy going.
Yeah,
it's great.
I mean, they range from up to about 45 minutes, some of them, because the running times are all over the place.
I do watch it at night, but I hasten to say it's not to make me sleep. It's actually you want to. I'll just have another one because this is fun. This is absolute fun.
But yeah, if you've never seen the Adventure Game,
yes,
well worth a punt, I think.
Yeah, buy the discs and watch it. You might know who half the people are probably.
We've got a few more to see, but we've done quite a few recently. Right, I think we'll stop there. Well, now I think we'll hand over to Mr. Nick Goodman, who's going to have a discussion about Children of the Stones, which is well worth.
Happy day.
Yes, indeed. And now I'll put in some HTV music.
Okay.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello.
Hello.
No, I'm supposed to say it. I'm talking to the listeners. I was going to say I'm talking to the viewers, but there's not much to view. We are on location in Salisbury. Well, not in the middle of Salisbury, are we?
Well,
no. There's cars going past.
There's cars going past. So
but we're not on some sort of traffic island.
No.
But we're in Mr. Nick Goodman's living room.
Yes.
Where you do your living.
I do a living.
You don't make your living.
No.
But we thought we'd have a sort of general natter about 70s telefantasy today, because that's one of your pet subjects. Yes. And first, out of the trap, as it were, your trap, Children of the Stones.
Goodness,
now, tell us why we should watch Children of the Stones.
Why you should watch it is because it is full of atmosphere, research. It's just a wonderful piece of telefantasy. I think I've used that word, telefantasy.
But give us some context. 1977?
1977, right at the beginning of 1977. If I may divert slightly, I was first time I saw it was in Look-In, which was the ITV kiddies thing, which told you about TV and what was coming up. And I remember seeing a picture of Freddie Jones kind of carrying away from one of the stones, and I thought, oh, this looks quite exciting. And I was up for anything sort of science fiction-y or adventure-y or weird.
But I was going to say, filming is in Avebury, which isn't too far up the road from here. And so it's quite a local thing.
I don't know if I ever watched it with my mum, because she would have been probably working at the time, but I definitely I wasn't aware until about a couple of years later just how local Avebury was. I mean, it literally was a short spin in the car, and it's you can tell it's the summer of '76 because everything looks so bronzed and warm and everything, and it just looks like a beautiful place to film, and it is, and it hasn't changed.
Because where does this fit in? This is Gareth Thomas as the sort of as one of the main actors, and it's got to be just before he filmed Blake.
It was a year before Blake. Yeah. So he started filming Blake in '77. Right. So, and he would have shot this in '76. Oh, right. Okay, yeah. So it's pre-Blake by a year. Yeah. But no, he it was an exciting, intriguing series, and I can still. It's difficult to kind of put it into words, but I just remember coming home from school, which is literally just up the road from here.
He's pointing out the window.
Yes, that's right. We are now only yards away from where I went to school there. And yeah, I mean, it was the kind of, it was a very familiar kind of thing of kids running the show, and well, no, not running the show, but as part of the central thrust of the story, and the sort of intrigue that. But there was something else about it, and I have to rush to one of my central points of admiration for the show, and that's Sidney Sager's very chilling music. I mean, it chilled me then, it chills me now. I can remember at least 2 nightmares that I had regarding Children of the Stones, and it's an absolute credit to the man that both of them had then his music, his sort of pagan chanting music.
It's meant to be sort of Neolithic music, isn't it? And there's something very sort of primitive.
Yes, and something very threatening, and it's used absolutely amazingly in the show, because any little bit, sometimes even a mundane thing, but like the boy in part 2 looking at the picture, and then the scene is actually sends a shiver down your spine because of his reaction and music and the whole kind of thing where the picture comes to life. I mean, it's simple things, but it's incredibly effective. Written by Jeremy Burnham and Trevor Ray. Trevor Ray, who was the script editor for Doctor Who. So he's come from... Well, there's an awful lot of well-researched astronomics and scientific bits, and also the history. So there's been an awful lot of depth gone into in the background, which gives it enormous gravitas. And so there's something that endures very well, because it gives you a lot of information whilst at the same time presenting you with something. It's a very recognisable place. It's where you might spend a summer holiday with your friends or whatever, and the whole thing with the school SWATs and the school. It's something that you can really identify with.
I don't think I actually saw it on first transmission, which is
Yeah.
Big omission on my part, but it's one of those shows, I think, that if you were a kid watching at the time, it stuck with you, because there was a documentary on the radio recently, wasn't
yes
there? It was Stuart Lee, I think, presenting it,
and one of the very telling things about that was the cast were saying that they didn't realise it was going to be as good as it was when they saw it, and I think that's a credit really to the production team.
But yeah, there's a lot of sort of kids tele-fantasy series and serials at that time, and they're all aiming pretty high, I think.
They are.
Yeah.
I mean, the goalposts were aimed high there. I mean, and it also didn't talk down to the kids. The only one I didn't see really at the time was Sky. And I saw
Sky.
That
I don't know at all. No,
I saw that 15 years ago and was actually really disappointed. It didn't have any of the kind of I hesitate to use the word magic, but quality that Children of the Stones had, because it was lots of film work.
Yes.
Very atmospherically shot, very expertly shot, edited. It's kind of the whole, as I say again, mixed with music. It's just a beautiful blend. You've got some quality actors like Ian Cuthbertson giving a really powerful performance, Freddie Jones being amazing. And it's just you wouldn't get people of that calibre.
I mean, somebody like John Woodnutt, he just pops up and just plays a butler for a few minutes, doesn't he?
And you can eat your dinner off his performance, because he's polished as ever.
There's the story of, I think, John Woodnutt used to tell about what was it? They had to bring some fake stones with them.
Oh yes, and an American tourist leant against one and had absolute hysterics because she thought she'd sort of busted this thing that had been there for millions of years. No, I mean that's the other thing. It's very, as well as being very scary and very interesting and intriguing, it's actually very pleasant to watch as well, because you've got the whole of that beautiful countryside and all of the stones and everything. It brings it all back to me, that first showing of it, and they showed it again in the summer of '78. But with the scary bits though, I mean, again accompanied by Sydney. But it's just simple things like the Di running away, when his amulet, Di being the tramp in it, when his amulet breaks, breaking his protection, and he rolls down the hill, and the kids go to run to it, and in its place is a stone. And I assumed he turned into a stone. Yeah. And that freaked the hell out of me. And again, that's, we had a Spanish lad called Herbie in our class at the time. I was in the first year in the junior school, and I had a dream about him turning into a stone, and that was even before the last episode where they kind of do. Sorry, spoiler. Spoilers, sweetie. Where they're all turning in, and that was a sort of go in with mum kind of nightmare, the last recorded one. but no, I mean that really freaked me out, and the last episode freaked me out as well with the whole kind of scenario. But you kept watching, because it was just sheer brilliance. And years later, I think when I first got the video, I think I got it quite late. I had a dream that I was at work and suddenly everything stopped and Sidney Sager's music came on. And that was 99. And so, you really...
It's a great shame. It doesn't appear to be a sort of proper release of his music, because he does this, and he does Into the Labyrinth as well, and
King of the Castle.
On King of the Castle,
which he really does get down on the organ, especially when the Fulton Mackay scenes, and the angles and everything. So he adds an atmosphere, and like you say, Into the Labyrinth. But fantastic stuff, but very you know, I used to be quite a nervous kid, so if there was it was a scary bit coming up, I know it was coming up. I'd be worried I would scare. It's just so brilliantly edited as well, because you've got a scene with Hendrik, Ian Cuthbertson as Hendrik and Gareth Thomas in the pub, and they're having a talkie scene, and it's all gone cryptic. And suddenly this Morris dancing dragon goes...
Oh, yes.
And that never fails to...
I know that. Yeah.
Even now, 40 years on, that never fails
very
to
weird
make me
looking
jump.
thing, yeah.
You know, suddenly it's... and I'm sure that was deliberate. And again, you had a team that knew what they were doing, didn't talk down to kids. And I have also quickly to say, it's interesting, Trevor Ray, now, he was in a lot of the early... he was in early poetry, but he actually scripted a lot of the early poetries, which had a course of a lot of scientific kind of thing. And I just wonder, because I often, with ambassadors particularly, as I know that's quite a hybrid, I always try and guess the bits that were written by...
Oh, who wrote what?
Yes, like Carrington is a very Hulk character, Regan is a very Whittaker character, and all the scientific bits about rocket fuel and sort of, if you do this, you do that, and the G-force and everything. I do wonder whether that came from Trevor Ray, because he seems to be very scientifically and historically up.
Yeah.
He seems to know what he's talking about on Children of the Stones. Well, they both do, obviously. But also, so I do wonder whether he brought that somewhat with him. And it's interesting hearing him in interviews, because he's sort of saying Mac Hulk was a bit of a hack, and he obviously was very frustrated with the standard of the scripts.
Yes.
And as with a lot of actors turned writers, he said, I can do better than
do that, yeah.
And so he went for it with Children of the Stones. I have to say also, two other things whilst we're talking about Children of the Stones. Return to the Stones is the book that they did.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, they did.
Well,
they did return to this
for some bizarre reason.
Sort of fictional universe at some point.
Trevor Ray doesn't seem to have been involved in it,
right.
For some strange reason.
When did that come out?
It was just before we moved here, so
I was going to say it's
about 5
fairly
years,
recent.
4 or 5 years ago. I enjoyed it, but it didn't quite have, because it could go anywhere and it didn't have the budget. You weren't constricted by budget. It rather spoilt it in a way, because the credibility. That was the other thing about Children of the Stones, because it was based in history, because it was so recognisable a place that you might go with your mum and dad for a day. You never doubted for one moment that these things could actually happen, to the extent that we had a Zimbabwean housemaid when Ali bought me the DVD when it came out, and we actually watched the last episode with her, and she got the chronology of the story mixed up. And she thought the beginning was sort of like in the same way there's a loop factor in the story, but she also did think that it was a real, well, a fictional version of a real event. She really did think these people turned into stone.
Oh wow!
And because of that power, it was quite amazing. And so yes, so it's still got a potency even now, and I think it's so based in reality. With the book, it was with the other book, the one that came out, the sequel. It was worth it, as with the Legacy of Reginald Perrin. It was worth it to see the old characters back and see if they're all right and see how they're getting on. And of course, there was eco warriors and emails and things like that. But the story went into kind of alien-y and sort of it is much more believable to have a black hole and someone manipulating all the sort of bits of it than sort of green-eyed monsters or something. Every sci-fi show pitches at the different level, at their own level of credibility. If like Doctor Who, you can have alien one day and some sort of atmosphere pieces the next. Only Doctor Who has ever really successfully switched from one to the other. So if you've got Blake 7, you know you're going to get space opera.
Yeah.
The occasional alien, but sometimes they go clunk. And
Harvester Kairos.
Which incidentally I actually rather like, but I do realise it's got a crap monster in it. And you get either Sapphire and Steel, for example, if an alien monster came lumbering in, that.
You do get them a bit in the annuals.
Yeah,
There's some dreadful robots in some of those annuals.
But that's obviously written by people
somebody else,
without a finger on the ethos of the show. Or at least had not very researched.
It's not real because it's
well.
not on the telly.
Exactly. And you have these pitches, and I think the pitch of Children of the Stones is what gives it its verve. Really, it really is quite nice. It's interesting because they did Burnham and Ray did Raven.
Yes, we've seen Raven. Yes.
Later on in the year. Now, I can, for some bizarre reason, I can only remember watching 2 episodes of Raven.
I have no memory of seeing it.
No, I literally, I've
originally,
just got those 2, which, considering how keen I was on Children of the Stones, is actually rather strange. But I watched. I think we bought the disc about 5 years ago, maybe not quite so long, and it was good, but I think it wasn't. It didn't have the same. It brought something different to the table, but it didn't quite work for me. I thought it tried to be sort of ecological, and topical, whereas it should have just let the story lead. And it was a little bit too issue based. It was still full of intrigue, and also I don't think the production values were quite so.
Yes, you can tell it's a bit cheaper. Yes.
And it's interesting because Michael Hart directed it, and he did the Space Pirates, which was apparently also done on the cheap. But it's interesting. Yes, it's all OB video work,
yes.
Whereas there's lashings of lovely
Feel the film.
That's right. It's almost as if I said, well, we can give you another series, but it's just really cheaper.
We got no money.
We got no money. Yeah. So dear old Raven, I do like it, but it's nowhere near tippity top or as gripping as Children.
And thank you to Nick.
Yes,
for
thank you,
his
Nick. That was a very interesting
lovely
interview.
piece, and we're pleased to say that Nick will be back next time.
He will.
With more.
He's not got stuck in the stones.
With more telefantasy stuff from the 70s.
Yes.
I just have a confession to make.
Do you? Okay.
I couldn't work out the Drogna right on the adventure game
After
thing.
all that working out on your fingers, and
I
you got
know.
it wrong.
I said a green pentagon was 25. That's wrong. A green pentagon is 20. A blue pentagon is 25.
Okay.
Yeah. We have seen a few more adventure games since we recorded that, haven't we?
We have, yes.
Mostly season 3 ones.
3 ones, yes.
So,
yes. Which I like apart from the Drogna game.
Oh, you don't like the Drogna
No,
game?
it's just
the red
pointless.
salamander thing.
It's not that. It's just them not being able to decide what colour or shape they should choose.
Yeah.
And then there's just a lot of faffing.
That did become a computer game for the BBC Micro.
Yeah, you said.
Yeah. But hey. But we've seen Janet Fielding, Bonnie Langford,
and Sandra Dickinson. Was it the Sandra Dickinson one where they just didn't even get there in time and they missed it out completely?
But they seem to circumvent various bits of the format.
The Bonnie
and some
Langford
of these.
one, there's the bit with the egg and
they
the
turn up too late.
No, that wasn't Bonnie Langford.
Was that?
No, Bonnie Langford did it because she was doing the thing and somebody Chris Humes.
Oh, Martha's wailing.
What's the matter, Mama?
Martha, well. Anyway.
Yes.
But yeah, we've just got some season 3 and 4 ones to finish off, and then we're done with the adventure game.
Yes.
But
we should probably slow down a bit otherwise.
But no, that rousing bit of music, Ilkley Moor Bartat.
Yes.
It's a lovely piece of music, but it does sort of signal the fact we do have something rather sad to talk about now. It's the loss of John Noakes.
John Noakes. Yes. Yes, we've lost 2 TV legends recently. The other one being Brian Cant, who we will talk about on the next
Brian
issue.
Cant would do on the next issue.
To make sure we can give him the maximum.
Yeah, we want to do a proper piece
exposure.
for Brian Camp, but we want to do a proper piece for John Noakes as
Yes.
well, don't we?
Yeah.
Because he's, again, one of these presenters at the core of certainly my childhood.
Yeah, mine too. Even though watching it and looking at what he did, I don't know what I would have seen him in, because I'm a bit too young to have seen him in Blue Peter, because I was only 5 when he left. But it was probably in Go with Noakes. But again, that finished in 1980, but I would have been 8 in 1980, so I suppose I might have seen him in that.
But yeah, we'll talk about Go with Noakes in a minute, and later on we want to look at a thing that John Noakes actually did some acting in, which is the series Redcap from 1964.
Yeah, which is
because John, like Peter, was actually an actor.
Yeah.
Not really a presenter as such, but let's just rewind a bit and talk about John's life before Blue Peter.
Yes.
John Noakes was not his birth name.
Right.
He was John Bottomley. Came from Halifax, Yorkshire.
Yeah.
But his parents divorced, and he lived with his grandmother and joined the RAF as a mechanic.
Right.
And then his mother married a Canadian trumpeter called Alfie Noakes.
Okay.
Alfie Noakes, you may know if you know your Derek and Clive sketches.
Right.
It's a familiar name. I'm not sure it's the same Alfie Noakes as meant to be.
It just sounds like a good name.
But John sort of went into sort of rep acting, and he didn't get a huge number of parts. It has to be said. Certainly not on television. There's a few things listed on IMDb.
Yeah, it's about 8 things.
Yeah,
he did.
Redcap is very early on in his career, 1964, and he's not got a huge part in that. But as I said, we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
But he joins Blue Peter. Now, when does he join Blue Peter?
He joins Blue Peter.
Now, we've got a book here. We better just plug the book.
Yeah.
The book is Richard Marson's Blue Peter 50th Anniversary,
which is obviously a little bit out of date now,
which is a few years ago now.
Yes.
But it's a fantastic reference work because it's got profiles on all the presenters. I think it's
actually quite scarily. They're coming up for their 60th anniversary next year.
Oh yes, is it right?
This is 2008.
But when did John join?
John
it's up the top there. December
30th December 1965.
And he stays till
the 26th of June 1978.
That's
so almost
that makes
12
him a
years.
very, very long
He's
running.
a substantial. That's why so many people remember him fondly, because he's there for such a long time.
But there's a lovely little note in this book about what was happening around December 1965. The head of family programmes, Doreen Stevens, quote, asked the BBC to authorise an increase of £50 per show to fund a third presenter, explaining that the show had found a very promising man, John Noakes. He is young, attractive, unaffected, and a complete contrast to Christopher Trace. But things didn't start off that well with John in Blue Peter. Like I think most of us would be if we were thrown into that situation with no presenting experience. There's a quote in the piece. It says, "This glass eye, the camera, stripped me naked. I shook with fear, the voice tremoring as I said the words. The first few months were quite terrifying. I went through murder. I went to a hypnotist and a faith healer to try and get me out of it." And they nearly dropped him from the show.
They did, for the first year or so.
But he got round it through falling back on his acting career, basically.
Yeah.
And he sort of evolved into John Noakes, the Blue Peter presenter.
Yes.
Who was a bit of an idiot, frankly.
Yes.
He sort of played it for laughs a bit, and he becomes a sort of slightly bumbling, I think the thing is, isn't it? That things go wrong when he would make stuff or do recipes and things like that, and that was his secret of coping with it, because he was playing a character.
He played a character, not himself.
He wasn't being himself on camera, and B, that was very appealing
to the children,
to the kids, I think. So, I remember seeing John. My Blue Peter period is John Noakes, Leslie Judd, Peter Purvis. I do remember Valerie Singleton coming in a bit because she used to narrate film things even a bit later. Yeah,
well, she?
I do remember Valerie.
Wasn't she involved in, because on one of, I think it's on the Romans DVD, there's a Blue Peter section on Pompeii.
Yes.
And
I think
Romans.
she does something on one of the Aztecs as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we never got to meet John Noakes, did we?
No.
I remember. I mean, we've met Peter Purvis a few times at Doctor Who things.
Yes.
You score one up on me though, in that you did meet Valerie Singleton, though, didn't you?
You
Go
say
on,
meet.
Tell us your Valerie Singleton.
You say meet. I say
encounter.
Show.
What happened? Where were you?
I was at work.
Where?
For a well-known supermarket.
But where was it?
In Sherborne, in Dorset.
Right.
And a lady came up to me and asked me if I could show her where the chilled soup was. And it was only as I was taking her to where the chilled soup was that I realised it was Valerie Singleton.
Right.
And my impression of her is that she was very polite. She thanked me nicely, and she was quite small.
Well, you're quite small.
Well, yeah, but she was a
Was she smaller than you?
Possibly.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, she was nice.
Yeah.
She was actually. I don't know what it is about that shop, but I met a couple of other well-known people there as well.
Okay.
So it was obviously a haunt for the celebrities.
We'll return to those stories later, I think, at some point. But John, he was the daredevil, wasn't he?
He was. He got to do all the
So he got to do all
stuff.
the completely dangerous stuff
Yeah,
you
Peter
probably wouldn't even be allowed to do.
No, certainly not Clive Nelson's
I mean, there's
column.
the infamous clip of the elephant, of course, in the studio.
Yeah.
But then there's, why don't we send John up Nelson's column?
Yeah.
Though it has to be said, the cameraman's in a fairly dangerous position with that
he's actually
as well.
below him as well,
Yeah.
isn't he? So,
You've got the bobsleigh
incident,
Cresta Run stuff,
Yeah.
where he got very badly hurt.
Yeah.
He's all bruised, isn't he?
He came off the bobsleigh, didn't he, and sort of skid down it or something.
Because isn't that the story that he had his wife's knickers on,
Didn't
allegedly,
he not have
or
any
something?
pants on or something?
I don't know what it was.
And Biddy Baxter said, "Oh, we want you to, the children would like to see your bruises." And he's like, "Oh, okay. Have you got clean knickers on, love?" And he nicked her black lacy knickers. Luckily, you couldn't really tell what they were. They just looked
Was
black.
it his wife's drawers?
Yes.
I think. Yes, I think it was. But you'd always enjoy seeing John Noakes. I think he was one of those
entertaining
70s presenters that
entertaining.
never disappointed, I think. And we played the music earlier. The music is Go With Noakes. So John is, I was going to say unique, but I realised that he's not, in that he gets a spin-off series of his own.
Because Peter Duncan got one as well.
Yes,
Duncan
Dares.
Dares. Well, I remember that as well.
But Go With Noakes. Now, we've just watched one back, and it's the one about rugby.
Yes.
Castleford Rules OK. And I've come to the sort of realisation that as a kid, I watched Go With Noakes.
Right.
But watching it back as an adult, I'm thinking, well, why on earth did I watch Go With Noakes? Because it was all about sporty things. And as a kid, I loathed sporty things.
You still do?
I still do. But it's like rugby and canoeing and all this sort of athletic stuff that just scares me. It's just horrible memories of PE teachers. Watching it back, I realised, but I watched it as a kid because it was John Noakes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
And
only
for
reason.
John to get me to watch sporty things,
Yeah, it's quite a thing.
that's probably the biggest tribute I can give him.
Yeah.
Because anybody else, I wouldn't go near that.
No, as I said to you earlier, it's telling that
Excuse me.
I watched Go With Noakes. I'm not quite sure when, but I don't think I watched stuff that Peter Purvis did afterwards, like Stopwatch and Kickstart.
Yeah, that's
Was that
interesting.
one called Stopwatch, or I just made that up?
I'd need to look that up
I
later.
might just made that up.
No, there was a thing called Stopwatch,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, John's sort of personality was I think very disarming. That I said about hectoring PE teachers, because there's a bloke in the Go With Noakes that we watched who's sort of chivying them on. He's like the coach or something like that. And had John had that sort of personality, I wouldn't I wouldn't have touched that series with a barge pole.
No.
But it's that sort of disarming thing that he had really well. That I'd watch him doing anything really.
Yeah, it's a shame that he seemed to become disillusioned with television in the sort of 80s and moved away from it, didn't he? He moved and lived in abroad in, I think it was Mallorca or something.
Yeah, I
There'll
mean,
be a story about that later as well.
We are very pleased that we've got a couple of sort of pieces from sort of various people about John. We've got one coming up from our friend Paul in a minute, just about meeting him. You see, that's all it is, because I think Paul's slightly too young to
he's a year younger than me, so.
to remember.
Yes.
But again, we've put up on Facebook that we're going to do a piece about John Noakes. The Admirable Higgins, I should point out, mentions that he wrote a book, a novel for children. Was it The Flying Clog?
The Flying Clog, yes.
I'd never heard of this. The Flight of the Magic Clog.
Yeah. I have actually downloaded it
but you've just
Kindle,
downloaded this because it's been pointed out to us. But there you are, Flight of the Magic Clog by John Noakes from 1979. So that'll be interesting to look at. But we've also got another book, which is Dear Blue Peter, which is a collection of letters sent in from kids. Because the whole point about Blue Peter was that watching it as a kid, the presenters were your friends. Yeah, and you would write in.
I never did.
Well, neither did I. No. But there's an awful lot of people in this book that did.
That
You'd write into the presenters and tell them, well, your news, basically. There's a very good example of this. If you just hold the book.
Okay.
And it's a very simple letter, and I think it sums it up very, very well. And it just reads, Dear John, we had a frog in our garden. Love from Mark, age 6.
They just wanted to tell his friend
That's
John
all
Noakes
it is.
on the television that they'd had a frog in the garden.
All the letter is. Well, there's a drawing of. Well, I think that's a frog. I'm not sure. It's a very poor drawing. It's really dreadful. But the fact that this kid just wanted to tell his friend John,
who he'd seen on the television,
who he'd seen on the telly,
was talking to him.
Yeah.
We
had a frog.
Yeah.
And that was
That's
all.
Nice.
That was. Yeah. I think that's one. I think that sums John Noakes up in his relationship with the audience up very well. I mean, you occasionally get these Blue Peter bits on the Doctor Who discs, don't you? So you've got the Daleks in when the Daleks were stolen.
Yeah, that's mostly Peter Purvis.
Yeah, and they're trying to get the Dalek when they recover. They're trying to get them on the back of the trolley of the van.
Truck, yeah.
And Noakes is being silly. Yeah. You've also got Shep encountering K9. I mean, we have to talk about Shep.
Oh yeah, lovely Shep.
You know, John's relationship with Shep.
Yeah.
I'm not really a dog person. I'm much more of a cat person. It has to be said.
Yes.
But you know, Shep was lovely.
He was lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And John's relationship with Shep was
wonderful. Yeah.
But I mean, John leaves in 1978, and there's a letter here. Dear John Noakes, it is a pity that you are leaving Blue Peter, spelt with 2 E's, because Mummy and I do not like changes. Love from Stephen Timothy West. And that's all it is.
Yeah.
So again, somebody was moved enough to write in and just to tell John that no, we'll miss you.
Yeah.
And that,
you're getting that cover up again.
No, I have to talk about this annual cover, and I can't remember what it's the 15th book. I'd need to work out what the year that is.
Well,
but it's Peter.
Kind of
it's Peter, Leslie Judd, and John in circus, like sort of acrobat trapeze costume sort of thing.
Yeah. That's really disturbing.
And John has got this open chest leotard thing on.
Yeah, I'm not even sure he has got tights on.
No, he has got. No, look at his knees; they are wrinkled. Unless John Noakes had wrinkled legs, he has got actually.
Okay.
Yeah, they are wrinkled tight, and this sort of posing pouch thing on.
It's a cod piece, isn't it?
Is it? And the letter that somebody's written in is, John Noakes appears to be very scantily, 2 L's, clad. Is Blue Peter lowering its standards? that's just
noticeable that Peter Posey's gone, I'm not wearing that.
Yeah, Noakes has gone, I'll wear anything. Yeah. But what's the one about the pomlet as well?
Oh, right, yeah, the child had never eaten an omelette.
A pomlet.
Is that a pomlet? I don't know.
Can you find it? Yeah, let me just find it. It's all right. I'll carry on. But yeah, somebody's because John would occasionally get to do recipes and things like that, and it inevitably it would go a bit wrong.
Yes.
But there's one here, October 70. I think it's 74. Yes. Dear John, I enjoyed your pomlet. It might be a pomlet. They might have done something weird. I don't know. Okay. I enjoyed your pomlet very much. We are having the lemon special tomorrow from Edward Robinson, aged 5. And there's a note. Dear John, for 5 years I have tried to persuade Edward to try an omelette without success. You managed it in 5 minutes. Blue Peter is great. Mrs. Robinson, Peterborough. Fantastic. Yeah. And I think that really is it. Yeah. That John Noakes was your friend.
Yes.
And if he told you stuff,
you believed it.
Yeah. And you wanted to talk to him.
Yeah.
And I think that's John Noakes' persona.
Yes.
In a nutshell, really.
Yes.
So now we're just going to have a brief word from Paul about meeting John in real life, and then we've got another piece from somebody else. So back in a second.
Hello, this is me, Paul Chandler, Shayeti. I have a little story about meeting John Noakes, but I don't have any sort of... it's very normal anecdote in a way. Strange circumstance, but basically, I think this was about 1991. I was on holiday with my parents in Mallorca. From what I understand, John Noakes and his wife Vicky have lived in Mallorca for years, and one way or another, I don't know how it came about, but they were offering walks around the island close to where we were staying, and all I can really remember is that my mum and I went on 2 of the walks. The first one, John was definitely there too. I'm not sure he came on the second walk, but I most certainly didn't dare ask anything to do with Blue Peter or anything like that. All I can remember is that he was really nice, she was really nice, and they were nice people to be around. And the walks were a couple of hours through some lovely countryside in Mallorca, and I liked it enough to go back the second day. And the fact that it was John Noakes and his wife was almost irrelevant, because they were just 2 nice people, and I was only about 18 at the time. I just remember getting on really well with them, and really that's all I've got to say about it. It's such a long time ago now. I really can't remember any particular anecdote. But on the other hand, it was one of those nice experiences. I was certainly aware of who John Noakes was, and so whereas my brother would have been too young to have known him on the telly, but it was just nice. So I just thought I'd share that little memory.
Thank you very much for that, Paul.
Yes, thank you, Paul.
I just like all these personal bits that people that we know.
Yeah.
When they meet these people, what it means to them. In fact, the Flight of the Magic Clog, I should have said that Peter Crocker said he's still got his signed copy. He signed my sister's copy, Love Noki.
Which is so sweet.
And I just thought that was lovely.
And just again, that makes him sound like your mate.
Yeah, John was your mate. Yeah. But now, briefly again, we've got a phone-in piece. We've never had a phone-in piece before. This is a first, so this was a bit of an experiment. Yes. But we're very pleased to have a phone-in piece from none other than Richard Marson, former editor of Blue Peter. Yes. Who's just going to talk briefly about what John meant to him as a kid, and working with him in in later life as the
Yes.
editor of the show. So extreme thanks to Richard for this, because it's just lovely to have this piece. So
And Matt West.
Matt West for organising it.
Organising it.
Yes. So over to Richard, and we now pass you over to the phone.
Yes.
Back soon.
Bye.
Hello. We're very pleased to be joined by Richard Marson, who's on the phone on a phone connection. So, and he's just going to talk to us very briefly about his memories of John Noakes, both as a child and as working with him. So, hello, Richard. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, guys. It's a pleasure. I hope the phone link works.
Well, we'll see. We'll just have to see. But you are about the same age as me, I think. And when were you born? 60?
Let's not go into details now. I was born in 66, so...
Oh, slightly older than me then.
I, like you, though, would have been part of the audience watching the kind of classic era of Blue Peter.
Yeah, Noakes, Purvis and Judd are my sort of
same here.
period of Blue.
I do vaguely remember Val, but more from special assignments than from the main show.
Yes.
For me, it was Noakes, Purvis and Leslie Judd who were my kind of core team.
But what made John such a perfect fit for Blue Peter, do you think?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because he had a very disastrous start on Blue Peter. I mean, for the first 18 months, he was so out of his depth and didn't know what he was doing. They very, very nearly dropped him. And eventually, I think what happened, what clicked, was that he'd been an actor like most of the Blue Peter presenters. And he suddenly kind of devised this character who was him, but like a heightened version of him.
Didn't
Exaggerating aspects of his personality. And that's what kind of became the famous John Noakes. But of course it meant that he had a sort of split personality, because the real man was much more kind of private and introverted than the TV version.
Well, didn't he refer to it as the idiot Noakes or something?
Yes. Well, I mean, he worked out, I think, that kids really loved the kind of the Joker, the one that slipped on the banana skin, the one that messed up the make. You know, it's made him very lovable, and he did that so well. I mean, I think he had a pretty good idea of what was going on, certainly by the time the sort of 70s rolled around. But he knew that if you are the clown, you kind of probably get more of the applause. And also, of course, he had the double act with the dog. And on Blue Peter, it was always a case of sort of love my dog, love me. And I think he benefited from that because he had such a brilliant relationship with Shep, who he used like a straight man in a comedy double act.
Now, as a kid watching at home, did you ever actually write into the show?
Oh yeah, I won a Blue Peter badge in 1972.
Oh,
my brother and sister, we all entered a competition, and I'd still got the BBC envelope and letter. Sadly the badge went AWOL many years ago, but it was quite a moment, as you can imagine.
I must admit, I never actually did write in. I knew a few people at school, I know, because I remember somebody bringing their Blue Peter badge in and being very proud about it. But
can I just quickly tell you, I'm just making a series in a secondary school in Sheffield, and I noticed one day that one of the 11-year-old kids was wearing a Blue Peter badge, and I thought, in the 21st century, how amazing is that? And when I asked about it, she was as proud as I would have been all those years before, or your friend at school would have been. It's an extraordinary currency, the Blue Peter badge.
But I mean, your career went into television itself, and eventually you ended up working on the show. Now, can we just
sorry to interrupt you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Blue Peter was really a major part of why I went into TV.
Yes, I was going to say how important was Blue Peter?
Hugely. I mean, I happened to see, I was skiving off when I was revising for my A-levels. I was skiving off one afternoon and watching a Blue Peter in which they went behind the scenes on the show. And I watched this film, and I thought, that's just such an amazing programme, because you've got the live shows, you've got the foreign filming, you've got the ability to do everything from history to gardening to, big action things. It seemed to me to be a kind of ultimate, chocolate box of a job where you could just do whatever you like, so long as you could make it exciting and interesting for kids. You could sort of do anything. And so I kind of always knew that that's sort of where I wanted to end up. And eventually I was lucky enough to get in there.
That's
a lot of trying.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. But yeah, you eventually got to meet the real John Noakes, did you feel that you met the real John Noakes, or were you still meeting the character?
Actually, yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that he absolutely didn't do the Noakes that you see on screen, off screen. When you had a conversation with him, or when I produced the programme in which we dug up the boxes of the year 2000, for instance, and that was quite an operation getting him involved in that, because by then he lived abroad, and also he had a kind of tricky relationship program fallen out with Biddy Baxter and so on. So it had to be handled with quite a lot of sensitivity, and he was a very thoughtful, quite morose. Like I think a lot of performers, their private side is, if not depressive, it's quite, as I say, introverted. So I think he was an interesting man. It was never dull talking to him, but it was quite hard to kind of reconcile the person that you were meeting and talking to with this kind of, and literally as soon as he said action or off we go, he was like, oh, I cannot believe what I've just done. It would come out of him.
I mean, we've recently seen him in an episode of Redcap.
Oh yeah,
where he's doing a Welsh accent. That's unusual, I have to say. We will talk about that fully a bit later on in this issue. But there's very little of sort of his acting career that we're familiar with.
Yeah, well, I mean, he wasn't hugely successful as an actor. I mean, he had been mainly working in theatre. In fact, he was in a theatre production when he was spotted by Biddy Baxter, because they ran a piece in her local paper in the Leicester Mercury. But he'd done, I think, little bit parts on TV, rather like Peter Purvis had.
Yeah.
Although Peter had a regular role in Doctor Who. Of course, at the time, that wasn't regarded as a kind of prestige job. So they weren't kind of... I mean, Noakes was probably the least known of any presenter at the point where he got the job, because Val had been a BBC continuity announcer, so people knew her from that.
Right, okay.
And obviously Purvis had done Doctor Who.
Yeah. But, well, thank you for that. It's just lovely to hear, somebody that actually spent some time with him and worked with him.
I'd finished, Andrew, by saying that we once had a dinner for all the Blue Peter editors, of which at the time I think there'd been only 5 in sort of nearly 50 years, and we all asked the question, who was the most popular and successful presenter and why? And we were all unanimous that it was Noakes. And I think it was because he was really, before real personalities were familiar on television, he didn't have a kind of received pronunciation accent. He had a warm northern accent. He was so natural, and I think he really connected with people, and that's why he was so popular.
Oh, just a postscript to this, and I think Matt West has already said, did you want to mention the forthcoming book? Yes.
Well, so, I mean, all of this has, of course, been in my head, because over the last few months I've been compiling my Blue Peter diaries from the 10 years that I worked on the show, and they feature a lot of encounters with Blue Peter presenters of the past, not just the ones that I worked with, and Milk are publishing that volume. It's a pretty hefty volume, I have to tell you, in the autumn. So,
all right.
Look out for that.
Well, it's certainly going to be on our shelves when it comes out, because all the Milk books are in our collection. So looking forward to that. But just wanted to say thank you very much for that, Richard. That's really much appreciated. Thank you then, and I'll stop there. And thank you again to Richard for that piece.
Yes, that was lovely. Thank you very much, Richard.
Appreciated.
And thank you, Matt West,
for helping set it up.
Yeah.
That music that we've just played is the music to Redcap.
Yes.
Though, because it's got the ABC jingle at the start, I keep expecting it to turn into the Avengers.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Because it's the only thing I know the ABC jingle is followed by.
Yes.
Very quick odds and ends from the adventure game that we perhaps should have said. The furry snake thing from Vision On, the thing that used to zoom about all over the set of Vision On, makes a very brief appearance in the James Burke episode.
It does.
And I think that's just an in-joke on part of Patrick Dowling, who did Vision On as well.
Vision On, yes.
And the Bonnie Langford one, we should note, has also got Chris Hughes in it.
Who's now an egghead.
Yes. So looking young.
A bit younger.
But he was going on about the Tay Bridge or something.
Yes, you can see the nerdism in him. I can say that because I'm a nerd.
Well, yes, that's right.
We're both nerds.
That's allowed.
That's right.
But Redcap. Now, why did we get Redcap, Lisa?
Why did we get Redcap?
Did Warren recommend it?
Because Warren bought it.
Right.
And Warren recommended it. And had I waited a little while, I could have got it a lot cheaper in the network sale, which is currently on, but never mind. Warren bought it and he said it was very good, and I trust Warren, and it looked interesting, and I'd been reading a bit about it anyway, because when I did my research for our Sweeney article, there was mention of Redcap.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing that brought John Thaw.
This is John Thaw at the real start of his
he had done other things,
career, isn't it? Because John Thaw, now when's he born?
1942.
1942.
Yeah.
And this is 1964.
Yeah, so he was 22.
Good grief.
Yeah, he doesn't look 22. John Thaw's one of those people that always looked older than he actually was.
It's not the very first thing that he's on, because he does pop up in Z-Cars for a few episodes in 1963 as Detective Constable Elliot, including A Quiet Night, which is the one in which I think nothing happens.
All right. It doesn't exist, does it?
No, I really want to see A Quiet Night.
Very annoying.
But that's meant to be quite fun. So yeah, he does have a few sort of appearances before then, but this is his first sort of starring role, really, isn't it? Yeah. So let's explain what the setup is.
He's Sergeant Man of the what do they call them?
The military police's
the special
investigation branch.
They're the Redcaps, hence the title.
Yeah. So as it's in black and white, you can't tell.
You can't tell that. But I think probably the military police themselves will admit that they're not very liked by the rest of the army.
No.
Because they have to go in and sort out the mess when something happens.
This is a DVD release from Network, as most of our collection seems to be.
Yeah.
And you've got 7 discs worth of stuff.
Yes.
Because it ran for, 2 series?
2 series, yeah.
And almost all of it survives.
Yeah, it's amazing.
There's
only 3 episodes.
There's 3 episodes that are missing. 2 of them are utterly missing. That's The Moneylenders and An Ambush Amongst Friends, both from 1966, series 2. Strictly by the Book is included as a sort of extra. Because although the episode's missing, there's a single reel of film from sort of part 3
film
of it.
Sequences, isn't it? So.
Yeah, but this is not as transmitted.
No,
because it's sort of out. It's takes, but it's the start of takes, and
the end of
so there's coughing and fiddling about at the start.
And people decide, do you want me to move? Or...
Yeah, and the camera like pointing at a chair for about a minute. But that's interesting to see.
Yeah.
You've also got an annual on there.
Yes,
as a PDF. We should look at that because I like that. You've been going through an annual phase recently, haven't you?
We've got lots of annuals of various things. Lots of TV comic annuals, Angels annuals, Catweasel annuals.
But the episode we wanted to look at more closely is episode 3.
Yes.
Epitaph for a Sweat.
Yes.
To read the description. Man finds himself in Aden trying to investigate the vicious beating of an Arab worker, encountering prejudice at every turn, and blimey does he encounter prejudice.
Oh, yes. Not to him, to the local population. Well, a bit to him, but mostly to the local population.
He has to determine whether it was self-defence or systemised brutality. Guest stars include Leonard Rossiter, Ian McShane, Mike Pratt, John Horsley, and John Noakes.
John Noakes, yes. Who's Welsh.
John Noakes is being Welsh in this, and
he's not bad.
He does a better. It has to be said, he does a better Welsh accent than I do, because you know how mine drift about.
Most people do, I have to say.
Oh, I see. The episode's written by Richard Harris.
Yes.
and directed by Peter Graham Scott, and proving that everything joins up.
Yeah.
Peter Graham Scott is producer-director on Children of the Stones.
He is, yeah. It's a small world.
None of this is ever planned, I don't think.
No, it just synchronises sometimes.
But you just get all these connections with...
As Professor Jones says in The Green Death, it's serendipity.
Yes. If you look in Radio Times...
TV Times.
TV Times, get it right. This episode is broadcast... Oh, it would help if I got the right TV Times, wouldn't it? Not that one. Right. Yes, it's the 31st of October, 1964. So Halloween, which was a Saturday. And there is actually a piece about the Special Investigations branch in this edition of TV Times, Crime Busters in Khaki. But as with so many of these things, it's nothing really about the actual...
it's just about the actual real people that
episode.
do the job.
It's to do with the background of the show. But it's broadcast at 9:10. So schedule beforehand is Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea at 7:30, The Arthur Haynes Show 8:35 or 25? 8:25. 9 o'clock is news, and 9:10 Redcap, and 10:10 the Sullivan brothers. Don't know what that is, but and the Pop Spot at 11:05, and Milligan's Wake. Spike Milligan, scripted by Ray Galton and Alan Simpson at 11:15.
All right, okay.
So there you go. So yeah, Redcap gets a nice.
That's the heart of the evening.
That's a real.
That's a good slot.
Good schedule. So it's considered, I think, to be a fairly solid, prestigious
show
series.
Yes.
And that's shown by the amount of really good guest stars you get in it.
Yeah, it's another one of these ITV things where you just get people that you don't expect to see in dramas, like Leonard Rossiter.
No. You've got also Ian Kennedy Martin and John Bryce as script editors and producer.
Yeah,
it's created by Jack Bell. I don't really know Jack Bell.
No.
I don't really know the name. But it's 26 episodes in total. Episode 1 is 17th of October 64, and the final episode is 25th of June 66.
So there's a bit of a gap between the first and second.
Yeah, we chose the John Noakes one first of all
because it's John Noakes.
Because A, it was John Noakes, and we wanted to see John Noakes,
and we'd never seen him
doing
acting anything.
And B, that I think that guest cast just leapt out at us straight away, because Leonard Rossiter's playing a sort of a sergeant. He's not very nice. To be honest, having now seen, I think we've seen 4 episodes of Redcap. Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of not very nice sergeants.
No, I don't know why anybody would want to go into the army, because it just doesn't seem like it's very nice. You get treated really badly. It seems to be that most sergeants have got attitudes. Yes, that's one word. Episode 1, by the way, is written by William Ems. Oh, right, we notice. We should watch episode 1 as well. We should actually watch that, I know. But we've seen... So what are we seeing? Was episode 3. Yes. Boys of B Company, which is episode 8. Yeah. Now, who's in that one? Richard O'Sullivan. Playing a really nasty character. Sort of boy sergeant, isn't it? Well, cadet sergeant. No, they call him boy sergeant. They're called boy sergeants. And Barry Evans, looking extraordinarily young. I couldn't recognise Barry Evans until he started speaking, because he's got a real short army haircut. Yeah. It's lovely to see Barry Evans looking so young in that. And then we've done a couple from season 2 as well. Yeah. Which are they? The Barry Letts one. Yeah. So which one's that? That's Prime Passionelle. Yeah. So that's Barry Letts, Brian Cox, and Joe Lynch. Yes. And Brian Cox just looking like his son. Oh, really? Yeah. Because his son's an actor as well. Yeah. Barry Letts is playing a major, isn't he? Yeah, with a moustache. And it's probably... just before Barry decides to be a director, becomes sort of, goes into production side of it. So I don't think. Have you seen anything else with Barry in acting? No. It's nice to. No, he's playing it quite posh, isn't he? Well, he's a major. He's a major. Majors are posh.
Yeah, and also Buckingham Palace.
Yes.
Now, this one was quite fun, I thought.
Yeah.
This was set in Cyprus.
Yes.
Because the advantage of this series is that he sort of travels all the way around the world, doesn't he?
He doesn't actually get to go out on location. I think most of it's filmed in
well,
studio.
a lot of it's studio stuff. There's the odd tiny bit of inserts of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's been to Aden. He was in the jungle in Crime Passional, wasn't he? And this one he's in Cyprus, where it's all cold and snowy.
Yes.
So he gets to move about a bit.
Yeah.
Now, who was in Buckingham Palace? Why is it called Buckingham Palace?
That's
It's
the
about
name
a
of the card game they play. It's like they bet different properties and things. Yeah.
Oh, that's William Lucas and Peter Bowles.
Peter Bowles and
Peter Bowles playing a sort of untrustworthy
Cypriot.
Yes.
Yeah. Peter Bowles. There is somebody. Ken Campbell.
Young
really
Ken Campbell. Yes.
Really young, and you don't really. I mean, you sort of do recognise him, and then he opens his mouth and you go, "Oh, God,
that's the same voice. Yeah.
But obviously playing it completely straight.
Now
Douglas, not Douglas. Donald Webster.
Donald Webster from Mr. Rose. Yes, that's right.
Playing a different kind of part.
Yeah.
But with the same kind of accent.
Yeah, but yes, it's one of these series that I sort of went into. I don't know whether I'd like it or not, but it's really well done.
It is. It is.
I mean, I'm always a sucker for black and white studio multi-camera stuff. Anyway, the sort of the outtake reel sort of demonstrates, how difficult these things are to shoot. I think, and it does require a lot of skill.
Yeah.
Just to make them as good as they are. But let's talk about John Thaw.
Yes.
In it,
yes.
There's a progression of the character. I think.
Yes, there's a notable difference.
Given that we haven't seen everything.
No, we've seen 2 episodes from series 1 and 2 episodes from series 2. And as Warren says, in the series 2 episodes, he's basically playing a prototype of Jack Regan.
He's
a lot harder.
Yeah, he doesn't put up with any nonsense.
No, he's a lot harder. You can see where he's going to go with Jack Regan when he gets the part.
Yeah. I mean, in the episode 3, which was the first one we saw, it did sort of jump out at me how reasonable he is.
He is. Where everybody around, everybody's throwing the...
there's a certain 3-letter word that they
W
use.
Word.
And it's noticeable that John Thaw's the only one that doesn't use that word, and he's at most all
he's
taking the local
reasonable.
Police seriously, whereas nobody else is.
No.
So is that thing about he's the reasonable character.
Well, he's your hero. You've got to have a hero, even though a lot of people probably would have identified with the other characters.
Yeah.
But your hero should be above all that.
Because he does seem to be quite a progressive sort of character, I think, really. Again, it's always, it depends on the writing so much, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. But by season 2, you can see where his career's sort of heading. It's interesting that so early on in his career, almost you can see where it's going to progress over the next 10, 15 years.
A posher version of Jack Regan.
Yeah, but I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
At the age 22. Now, what was it you said about when he finished doing the series?
When he finished in the series, this is what I read in the book I was reading about the Sweeney. The series finished. He'd separated from his wife, so I think he might have been living with Ian Candy Martin.
Right.
But I'm not entirely sure about that. And then he got a huge tax bill.
Right.
So he had to then almost kill himself to work to pay off the tax bill and support his family.
Because what did he do after this then?
I'm not sure. Excuse me, sorry.
Bat Out of Hell, 1966. Oh, he does pop up in Strange Report.
Yeah, I think he does a lot of one-off parts just to get some money. And I think he might have done some theatre as well.
The Need in Line, Budgie.
Yeah, it's not. No, it's noticeable that after Redcap, he doesn't do another series until the Sweeney.
Series starring Rock. Oh, because of course he's in Rivals of Sherlock Holmes as well.
Oh yes, he is. He's in that one. He's in that one episode with Catherine Schell.
It's the Catherine Schell one. Yeah,
yes. He's marvellous in that. If you're going to see that, you should watch it.
Yeah, I'd forgotten. Yeah, because that's the one with Catherine Schell and
Philip
Maddock. Yes.
It's an absolutely superb cast.
Yeah, that's...
And he's playing. Isn't it in Norway or somewhere like that?
Oh,
but
I can't remember.
He doesn't do an accent.
No.
He just does it, which is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Because
we've got to do Rivals of Sherlock Holmes at some point because there's
so many marvellous
so many
episodes.
good stories in that as well.
But we're going off at a tangent.
Yeah,
so.
But yeah, Redcap. We've done 4 episodes in quite a short time.
Yeah.
In fact, we did 2 episodes in a row today, didn't we?
Yes.
We wanted to sort of see as much as we could before
we did this.
But
we should actually go back and talk about An Epitaph for a Sweat, because we've not actually talked about the episode so much. And John Noakes.
Yes. Well, so
yeah,
tell us what the storyline is.
Well,
here.
He goes to Aden, is it? I've forgotten where it was now.
Yes.
Because this local person has been beaten up
badly,
very badly, and what happens is that the sergeant says that he found him broke.
So this is Leonard Rossiter.
Leonard Rossiter's character. He'd broken into a storeroom, pulled a knife on him, and he says he hit him. Basically, I don't want to give too much away because people might want to watch it, but you do see on screen that this may not be entirely true.
Yes.
Then halfway through the episode, Leonard Rossiter's character gets killed off.
Yes.
And then it turns to who killed
did
him.
that instead. Yeah.
And it's so he then investigates what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So
did we say Mike Pratt's in it as well?
Yes. Mike Pratt's the other sergeant.
Yes.
In it.
And Bill Treacher.
Bill Treacher, yes.
As a corporal as well.
Yes. Yeah.
But yes, it's
throwing the W round word around.
Yes,
like nobody's business. But John Noakes, his character is...
I mean, it's not a huge part.
But he gets this scene where he's welding.
Yeah.
And it's actually him welding because they're fixing a bridge. A bridge has been damaged.
Yeah.
And they're sent off to fix it. And there's a character welding and he lifts the mask up and it's John Noakes.
So, I mean... I'm just wondering whether it was one of those things that can you weld?
Yeah.
Yes, you've got the part.
You got the part,
because he was in the RAF, John.
Yeah.
And he was a engine fitter.
So he might well have.
He might well have been perfectly capable of that. Anyway, so it's just. I know actors always say if you go up for a part,
and I say, "Can you do
this?"
You
You always say yes.
Yes.
Can you
ride a motorbike? Yeah.
Can you ride a horse? Yeah. All that stuff. You never say you can't do anything.
No.
But yeah, you're right. That
But it's an extraordinary moment when he just lifts the mask up and oh my god, it's actually John Noakes.
But yeah, it's just lovely to see John doing that, and it's only a couple of years before.
No, yeah,
it's only a year and a bit before Blue Peter, isn't it? So, as we said, he's December 65 for Blue Peter, and this is broadcast is October 64.
But it was probably made not much.
I don't know when the actual filming would have been for this. But I'm certainly looking forward to seeing a few more of these. And I said it's definitely the cast list that attracts me to this.
It's, as with all these things, because I think Philip Maddock's in an episode coming out on series 2, and
Windsor Davies, Eutha Joyce. So we said about something. Graham Crowden's in one. Well, that'll be fun.
Graham Crowden's in everything.
Philip Maddock. Donald Hewlett. Just brilliant people. Oh, John Savidon. I said John Savidon.
Oh, God.
Garfield Morgan.
Yeah, he's in the next episode from one of the ones we watched today. Yeah.
That's one in the South China Seas, that one.
He looked quite young.
All right. I mean, blimey, this series does move about, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, because it gives you the opportunity to put it wherever the British Army was at that particular time.
So he must clock up the miles, Sergeant Man.
Yeah. I mean,
silly names.
Oh, yes.
There
are a lot of silly names in it.
Yeah. yes, he's called Sergeant Man, and we love the
Yes.
idea that before he joined the army, he was just Mr. Man.
Mr. Man. But he's just got called Mr. Man in the Boys of B Company
Yeah.
because he pretends to be from the whichever part of the government.
But the
deals with
episodes
the,
we've seen,
army.
we've had somebody called Fish,
Yes,
somebody called Christmas, and
Yeah.
somebody called Bucket.
Bucket. Yeah.
And I'm just starting to wonder if there's this
And they're
thing
just
with the
throwing
writers.
who can put the silliest name.
surname in? It sounds like it's a writers' competition thing,
Yeah.
like, you know. But yeah, it's the Boys of B Company. What's your name? Christmas.
Yeah. And you're like,
And you go, well, I wasn't expecting that as an answer.
no.
So there's a little bit of humour in it. It's not all totally grim, is it?
No.
You know,
It's a little bit grim in places.
yeah.
But
I mean, inevitably, given the subject
yeah, it will
matter.
be. Yeah.
But it's sort of yes. There's some nasty moments. It has to be
Yeah.
said, but nothing that's particularly off-putting
No.
to me, and I'm quite
Sensitive.
easily off-put
Yes.
by some things. I have to say.
But it is a good series. We would recommend it.
Yeah.
I mean, if nothing else, it's just really nice to see John Thaw looking fairly young.
Fairly young, not
Yes.
incredibly young,
No.
but fairly young. But yeah, as it's our sort of. It's our discovery of the month, really,
Yes.
isn't it, Redcap?
Well, it's Warren's discovery
Well,
of
Warren's
the month.
discovery, but yeah.
Yes, but yeah.
But I think we'll finish there. And that's issue 11, just about done.
Yes. Goodness me.
So thank you for listening. Thank you
Yes.
for everyone who's helped.
Yes.
Issue 12 is fairly well planned
Already.
Yeah. In fact, we've got at least 2 things already recorded that from various very nice people. So thank you for that. And yes, we'll let you go now.
Yeah.
We'll have a silly sketch at the end as usual. We've already recorded that, so we know what that's going to be about. And we'll see you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, try standing on the red triangle. Oh.
No, that's not right either.
Okay, then it's got to be the blue square.
Yeah, that one seems to be alright.
Oh, I think we're finally getting the hang of this.
Green
Oh,
pentagon.
it's got to be, isn't it?
Yeah, that one's safe.
So it must be the yellow triangle.
Hurrah! I've made it.
Oh, well done.
Finally, though next time you have a new bathroom floor fitted, remind me to check what planet the bloke comes from.
Ek Noah Elodge Namgals Depmak Iber Nobalib. That was episode 11 of Round the Archives, starring Lisa Parker and Andrew Trowbridge, with Warren Cummings, Nick Goodman, Paul Chandler, and special guest Richard Marson.
Thanks also to Matt West, Peter Crocker, and the enigmatic Higgins.
And a special ole to Bill Homewood.
On the musical side, you heard Dan Tate and Paul Chandler.
The script for Redcap, Epitaph for a Sweat, was by Richard Harris.
And the producer was John Bryce.
Several light milliseconds away, on the south side of Dorset, lies a small, relatively overlooked podcast known as Round the Archives. The archivers, though rarely visited by television producers, have a regrettable sense of humour.